Be the Talk, episode 318, featuring Shikha Tandon. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Shikha Tandon. Shikha, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready to talk. Let's go.
Shikha Tandon is the only swimmer to represent India in the 2004 Olympics. She has won 37 international swimming competitions and received an award from the President of India for her achievements. Combining passion for sport and bioscience, Shikha has carved a career in anti-doping science as well as fitness technology. She develops sports and education ecosystems in India. Shikha Tandon, welcome to the talk.
Thank you, Nathan.
Your talk is called Is Passion a Choice? I love this because you tell the story. You've got great parents because you were whining, apparently in your story. I guess kids all over the world, we all whine when we're little kids. So you didn't like the color of the ribbon of the bronze medal that you won. You didn't like, it wasn't the bronze medal. It was the color of the bronze medal ribbon. And what did your mother say? It's like my mama says the same kind of thing to me. If you want something better, you have to work harder. And I love it. Shikha Tandon, please take us behind the talk.
So my talk was about connecting the dots. And so I was invited to talk about my story as a swimmer and as, going on to become an Olympian. And so behind the scenes was basically just running people through what that journey was like. My swimming career spanned about 15 years. And so right from the time, like you mentioned, me being this, little girl, 8 years old, extremely scared of the water, I wanted nothing to do with the water, and, how I eventually started swimming and how I got to enjoy that journey, and then eventually going on to becoming an Olympian. And the story that you mentioned was, I think, the turning point in my career, where it was my first national medal. I was all of 9 years old, and I'd won a bronze, and, I touched the wall, and my mom was crying and I was crying after the medal ceremony. And, my mom looked at me and she said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Well, because I don't like the color of the ribbon on the bronze, because I think it was a yellow and I wanted the red or something." And she was crying. She had tears in her eyes. And hers were out of joy, because she was like, "Oh my God, my daughter's just won her first national medal. And there I am standing. I want the other ribbon." And so she, told me something in that moment, which was, just work as hard as you can if you really want that other ribbon. And I think that's something that just stuck with me throughout the 15 years and even beyond, even after I stopped competitive swimming. And that's something that I live by today. And I feel like when we talk about passion, I think there's, people just assume that, when you go ahead and do something, you're going to enjoy it immediately. And that's what passion means. So everyone's just constantly looking around to see what is it that I enjoy in that moment. And if I don't enjoy it in that moment, then that's not my passion. And you tend to move on to something else. And especially in this day and age where, we've got so many things to catch our attention. So anything that glitters, we tend to look at it. And if that's not attractive enough, we move on to something else. So I think with passion and we being able to persevere through what I call an interest, and allowing that interest to grow on you, I think that eventually develops into passion over the years. And when you look back, that's when you can see, oh yeah, this was a passion, versus, looking at it, up front saying, okay, I don't enjoy this. This is not a passion. I enjoy this. This is a passion. So the talk was really about going through my journey, my takeaways from that journey, and what that means into finding something that you, eventually end up being passionate about.
There are two types of passion talks. Whenever I interview someone, whenever you go on TED Talks or TEDx Talks, and the one is it almost, if it's done well, it can be very inspiring, but if it's not done extremely well, it looks like a caricature, which is follow your heart and just, that kind of thing. And then there's the other side, which is really, kind of this stoic, work hard, overcome the obstacles, have a learning mindset, blood, sweat, tears. And, especially, whether it's done with someone with a stellar track record of performance or not, it's a weightier talk. Certainly whenever there's an Olympian telling us, work hard and press through your barriers, it's a powerful thing. So, Shikha, if you'll let me, I know you probably have, only, almost always only answer Olympic type questions, but the rest of us have never been there. So if you'll let me ask you just a couple, then I'll get past, and I want to talk with you about how you got into anti-doping science and some of the really great work that you're doing right now. But would you grant me just a couple of Olympics questions?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about that.
All right. So 2004. All right. I've been to India, I think, a couple of times. I've been to three or four different cities in India. And I have family members, from India. So a beautiful country, beautiful people. It is an intense experience. And, it's just a wonderful place. And you were the only Olympian in 2004. So, I mean, we love the opening ceremonies, and you see all the different countries. And this last time they had the Koreas, coming together as one. And there's just all of this euphoria, this global euphoria. You're the only one in India, and there's 1 billion people in India. Not everybody is wired to television, but you've got 1 billion people talking about you, knowing about you. What was that like, on that level? And what was it like you were the only person from your whole country? So, was that kind of lonely? What were you feeling with that? That dynamic is just so unique. I just want to know what it was like for you.
Yeah. So I was the only swimmer that represented India in that games, but the whole Olympic team had about 70 odd athletes from various different sports.
So good. I read that wrong then. I totally read it wrong. Great. Yeah. Okay.
So at the swimming arena, it was just myself. So, I mean, when you talk about swimming, you talk about the 1 week events that go on, and it's just me, and you see these other teams that have, multiple other athletes as part of that team. So as an experience at the Olympics, I think it was absolutely one of the best experiences that I've had. And I tell this to a lot of people that, you have 10,000 athletes from all over the world. Everyone's living together, eating together, training together, competing together. And, nobody's treating anyone any differently. You could be a multiple time world record holder. It could be your first experience at the games, and everyone's treated with the same amount of respect. And I think that's something so unique. And I think that's so needed, that if all of us, and sport, I think, has the power to do that. It has the power to bring us all together, no matter which country you're from. Everyone's there with the same aim to be the best that they can. And, and you also know that, everyone back home in your respective countries is watching you. And with that there is some amount of pressure. You do tend to feel nervous because just the size and the games itself brings that emotion in you. But at the same time, there's just so much excitement, because as an athlete, that's literally the pinnacle of your sport. And so that's something you've been dreaming about, potentially right from the time you started the sport. And it's finally there, and you're in that moment, and you're excited to embrace those experiences. But at the same time, you also know that you're there, to perform to the best of your ability. So it's a mix of excitement and a bit of nervousness. And I think the key is really to be able to manage both those emotions equally, and just to go out there and do the best that you can. And I think most importantly is just to have fun in a situation like that.
Were you able to be present and be able to enjoy and have fun, and yet be able to be serious minded and train and do all the things you needed to do, but really sponge up as much as you could?
Yeah, I was definitely able to do that. I unfortunately fell sick a little bit for my event. So it didn't go as well as I would want it to. But given the circumstances and given everything that was going on at the time, I think I did well, and I was happy with the experience. Definitely something that I look back to very, very fondly every time I think about it. And, every time I share my experiences with people, with younger athletes who are, coming up the ranks, or with just people who are, not really in tune with the Olympics. And when I share that experience, everyone comes away feeling like they were part of that journey. So I think that's an important message to share, just because the power of sports and what it can do for everyone as a community.
Shikha, you were talking a moment ago about just the level of performance and the level of collegiality and friendship, and there's just kind of this unspoken bond where all of your competitors, you all respect each other. You know it's merit-based. You know that you earn the right to be there, and you all get along and everything. And I love this, the tie-in, because you're also a TEDx alumni. And so there are many people that are trying to get accepted, many people that really want to be a TED speaker, and not all of us have a performance background either in sports or in, performing arts, which is kind of my background, or in some other, maybe public speaking. Not everybody is used to being on that kind of a platform, whether it's a sports or a stage platform. What's your advice to other people that are really, they have that idea we're spreading, they've been accepted to give a talk, and how would you describe kind of the level of preparation that they will need to do? It's not Olympic level, but it's still a high level of performance to be able to communicate. And maybe for you, how did you pivot from being able to swim really fast, being a great sprinter, to being able to translate that or get to that same level for your talk?
I think a couple of things. One is definitely, as you're preparing for that talk, just writing out your script. I think one of the key things is just to be completely honest. Because a lot of times people, when they're writing something, you're thinking about the audience, saying, okay, what do they want to hear? And sometimes it's almost like you have to understand that this is your journey, this is your talk, and you're there to share your experiences with the people around you. So you don't necessarily have to, put it in such a way where you're telling people what they want to hear. They're there to hear what you have to say. So I think it's important to dig deep and just be honest about your experiences. There are definitely going to be ups and downs, and some positives, some negatives. And I think it's important to share both, because that really gives the wholesome picture of your background and of your experiences and where you're coming from. And sometimes, the not so nice parts is what will motivate and inspire people. Sometimes it's the positive aspects that inspire people. So I think the real key for me was to be honest and just sit down and, just dig down deep and write it all out. Everything that I was feeling, everything that I was thinking. And then, because it is a time crunch and you have just a limited amount of time. So then you can, you take out some aspects just to, give a concise picture of what that journey looks like. At least that's how it was for me. And I think when you're honest, that honesty shows. And when you're talking about your own journey, especially when it comes to preparation for the talk, then, you're not necessarily memorizing things. You're just going back and reliving your own moments. And I think that's a lot easier to talk about than just having a script which is memorized. And especially if that's something you've never done before, then that can be really daunting to just know that I have to memorize, 20 minutes worth of material. But if it's your story, it's easier to talk, because then that becomes almost like a conversation. And when you talk, it's like a conversation, then the audience also engages with you better and understands, and is more, the conversation becomes more immersive for everyone involved.
Well, great. Well, as promised, I want to find out about how you got into anti-doping science, and tell us a little bit about maybe some projects or programs that you have right now, because that that's actually linked to this whole competition piece, because it flies in the face of the purity of athletics and, human performance and everything. So how did you get involved, and what are you up to in there right now?
So my background, even as I was competing, was my education was in the biosciences, and that was something that I was really passionate about as well. And so throughout the 15 years of my sporting career, I was able to juggle and manage both the academics and, the athletics piece of it. And so once I did decide to stop competitive swimming, I, wanted to pursue a career in anti-doping science, just because it allowed me to combine both those passions of sport as well as biosciences. And I think I was able to do that because I had experiences in both those fields. And what it allowed me to do was, give back to the sporting community and just do my bit, to make sure that, sport is clean across the world, and that, every athlete is given a fair chance at that starting line. And, everyone's there, and the winners are eventually the ones that, have worked the hardest or put in the most amount of effort. And I think that is something that is very, very important to me. Growing up as an athlete, I was tested a bunch of times, and, I know what that's like. I know what the system is like. And I think it's important to have every athlete in the world who's worked so hard to come up to that starting line, just at the back of their mind, know that, everyone's on the same playing field. And also from a health perspective, I think it's very important to spread that message of anti-doping in sports. And that's how I got to that field. And I've been extremely fortunate because just a handful of, Olympians in the world are able to do the research and science side of anti-doping in sports. So I've been extremely fortunate, very grateful, very thankful, and I thoroughly enjoyed that journey as well.
Well, we've been enjoying this conversation with Shikha Tandon. Her talk is called "Is Passion a Choice?" And we're going to pivot over to you for just a couple minutes, Talk Universe, because we're about to go into the Blitz Round. Hey, Talk Universe. I hope you've been enjoying today's episode with today's guest. But you know what? Many people want more than that. Many people that listen to Be the Talk actually want to give a talk. And if that's you, you're not alone. Listen to the rest of this podcast. At the end, I'll have a free resource for you just for listening. And it's time for the Blitz Round with Shikha Tandon. I'm going to ask Shikha a series of either or questions related to the preparation and performance of her recent talk. Shikha, are you ready?
Yes, ready.
All right. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was invited to speak.
Are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
I think I want to say blender. I think I improvise a little bit, but for the most part, given the time constraints of the talk, I think it's important to memorize and just, even if not word to word, but just have a structure in place and memorize that structure. What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you prepare? I think putting myself back in the moment of especially the aspects of the talk that I was talking about, because when for example, if I'm talking about when I was an 8-year-old and narrating a story or an incident, I think just going back in that moment and then just talking about it like a conversation, I think that helps you be a little less nervous and also explain and narrate the experience in the best way possible that can, engage with the audience. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk? So I was the opening speaker for that event, and everything was going fine up until the day before. We had rehearsals, and everything was great from a technology standpoint. And then the morning of, for whatever reason, they had technical glitches, and all the mics stopped working. So we had a 2-hour delay. And so you have this 2-hour delay. Yeah. So and it ended up being a 2-hour delay, and obviously we didn't know that it was going to be that long. So I'm sitting there backstage thinking, okay, we're going to start in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you obviously have the audience that's waiting there, to get the day started because they've invested their time as well. And so finally, when we did get started, I think everyone was pretty happy. And also, I think the expectation was a little higher than otherwise because now it's the opening act. And also, you've had people waiting 2 hours just to hear you. So what's your advice? What's your advice to openers? I think just to understand that you are the one kicking off the day. And I think in the beginning, half of the day is when everyone in the audience is most excited and, they haven't yet had their lunch break and they don't necessarily need their coffee just yet. So to capitalize on that and just keep it engaging and also know that, if you're able to keep that audience engaged, that benefits the speakers coming after you. And I think that's an important thing to do for especially the opening speaker. We've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Shikha Tandon. Her talk, again, is called Is Passion a Choice? You can watch her talk over at BeTheTalk.com. In our show notes page, we'll have a link right there. You can always type it into YouTube as well if you like to type. You can also check out her LinkedIn page. We will have a link to Shikha's LinkedIn page as well. And we'll be right back with Shikha Tandon's final word of advice. Hey, Talk Universe, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to give the talk to change the world, but you don't know how or even where to start, no problem at all. Go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted for my new 5-day email course that'll show you how. Absolutely free. Just go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted. And we're back with Shikha Tandon. It is time for the final word of advice. What is it? Be concise, be honest, be willing to share every aspect. You don't have to only focus on the positives. And I think that shows in your talk, and that will resonate a lot more with people than if you're just, saying the things that they want to hear or that they've heard before.
Shikha Tandon, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nathan.
Thanks for listening to Be The Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.